2000.
Hell yeah, we out here.
Wagwan, y'all, and welcome back to my channel. So I posted today on my Twitter, unpopular opinion, violence is the answer. And I said that in response to the video that I saw circulating on Twitter on the riots that's happening in Minneapolis after the young brother who was murdered a couple of days ago by a white supremacist officer. And yes, he is a white supremacist. He's wearing a red hat that says, "Make whites great again." We already know that the whites have never been great. And actually in this video, this is what I wanted to talk about. So as some of you may know who follow me on my Twitter, I adamantly talk about Black people buying the book Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams. I talk about this book a lot because one thing that my father has taught me was that hindsight is 20/20. I never quite understood that as a child, considering that my span of understanding was very limited as a kid. But as I've grown older and start seeing the reality that I live in, I'm starting to understand that Black people currently, right now in 2020, we are making the same mistakes. It's like every 2,000 years, we are collectively making the same mistakes over and over again. And it's eluded in this book. I'm seeing in this book, and it's spanning from 4500 BC to 2000 AD, right? And it's like every 2,000 years or so, we're being tried and tested by the same group of people that have been invading this planet for a greater part of almost 4,000 years. We've been accustomed to know about our history, especially when it comes to slavery, spanning from the 1300s to the 1500s, right? Not understanding that the Europeans have been invading or attempting to invade Africa way prior to that. We'll think about events such as Alexander the Terrible. I don't think he was great because all he did was he literally went to every single melanated nation. And at the time, India was considered a melanated nation because this is way before the Europeans invaded India. So they were Black at the time. This man literally invaded all of these nations, putting his name on all of these cities, including one of the cities in Egypt. Now, I even have a theory about that. I have a theory that white supremacy did not start in like the 1700s or whatever. I have an understanding that this started with the mentality of Alexander the Terrible with Hellenization, but that's a totally different video. But I wanted to talk about real quick was the fact that the Europeans, when they try to conquer Africa the first time around, this was at least, I would say, about 2,000 years prior to Alexander the Terrible even existing. And I keep hearing on social media, oh, Black people, we're not ready as a collective. We're not ready to, we can't retaliate. We got to organize. We got to do this. And you know what? Just for a disclaimer of this video, they are absolutely correct. We are not ready. We are not on a unified front to do anything for that matter. However, let me just take it back real quick. When the Europeans first attempted to come into Africa, this was during the time when the temples of Egypt was still up. A lot of the sciences, and this is in Stolen Legacy, another book that I highly recommend that Black people start reading, because a lot of the sciences that we know today, it has been taken from Africa, revamped, and fed back to us by the Europeans, thinking that, oh, these philosophers, these scholastic philosophers, they're so intelligent. No, they were picking fleas out of their asses during this time. Let's get that fucking clear. Philosophy for the Europeans, the Greeks and the Romans, that didn't start around until about 500 or 600 BC. Now, when you actually look at the history between Africa, the interactions between Africa and the Europeans at the time, you have to also understand that the military, they wanted their soldiers to go into Africa to learn the sciences. That is not a coincidence, okay? Now, what does this have to do with the tweet that I posted? 2,000 years prior to Alexander the Terrible spreading Hellenization throughout the southern hemisphere of the world, the Europeans, the Caucasians, the Caucasoids, whatever you want to call them, because I know people are going to be like, well, they weren't called Europeans back then, and oh, it's just a regional name. Okay, the non-melanoid people, okay, let's talk about that. Prior to Alexander the Terrible, they did not have an established militia. They weren't able to do anything during that time, except for being able to pick fleas out of their ass cracks. This was way before the Africans even taught them how to wash their ass, because in Stolen Legacy and other scholastic reads, I can't remember which book I read it from, they actually prohibited the Europeans, the Caucasians, the non-melanoid people from coming into their country because, for one, they were too savage for them to understand the sciences during that time, okay? The Europeans did not have a militia, but yet and still they were still able to get into Africa, and with a span of 2,000 years, they were able to turn a whole melanated country. And yes, you have to read on every single country's ancient history, not based on his story, but you have to sit down and meditate and read in between the lines. And then you also got to read from where these white supremacist archaeologists are getting their information from. Are they themselves white supremacists in mentality? Some of them are not. Some of them recognize what the deal was, and they knew that they were not ready for the sciences. They literally came into Africa knowing damn well that they were too savage to accept the sciences, but they knew that in the fold of Africa there were a few priests in the temples who allowed them to come in to learn the sciences. Black people, we have no excuse. I will keep saying this because I want you to understand the truth. The moment I start reading about my history, all of my history, from as far back as I can research, I realize that the power within us, we have it. But they knew that putting fear within us and telling us, oh, well, we are living in a system now and white supremacy has been revamped and they have institutions now and we have the militia and they have bombs and weapons of mass destruction and all of these things. And rightfully so. Yes, they have these things, right? And and I know people are gonna come into my comments and they're gonna be talking about, well, 2,000 years prior to Alexander the Great, they didn't have anything. Greed and anger has always been around, and they used that against us even before the militia came around. They used that before they gave black people Bibles. So why can't we as black people learn from that? You know, I can go on and on and on about how we are just experiencing the same. This is like Groundhog Day. We're experiencing the same shit over and over and over again. But I advise you, whoever's listening to this video, whatever money you have, if you got $50 that you can spend right now, go on Amazon and buy Stolen Legacy and Destruction of Black Civilization. I'm telling you, these two books in combination together, this is a tonic. It is a tonic that will flush out all your insecurities. For me, it helped me address a lot of the cognitive dissonance that I was experiencing and the fight within myself. And when you're incongruent to eating healthy, working out, meditating, and I talk about this all the time, sunbathing. When I tell you that sitting underneath the sun as a melanated being and earthing, feeling the grass between your toes, feeling the sand. I love the beach. If you go to the beach and you let the voices of your ancestors, and I know people are going to think I'm crazy, but if you let the voice of your ancestors speak to your soul, they're going to give you a lot of empowering feelings within yourself, and you're going to see the terrorism that you're experiencing. You're going to see it as if they are terrorizing you. They are terrorizing the spirits of your ancestors. I want you guys to understand that violence has always been the answer. Anyone that has told you, people like to quote Gandhi, not realizing that Gandhi was racist as fuck. Anybody who quotes these people say that nonviolence is the answer, these people are passive and weak-minded. Violence has always been the answer. Now, if it's gonna have to be with bloodshed being, spilled, or with you corrupting someone's mind, something needs to happen. They did not always have to bring bloodshed for Black people to understand what kind of powers they are exacting. All they had to bring was their greed to invade. That's all they had to bring. And everything else is history. But other than that, guys, I just wanted to, I was basically just walking around in my house pacing and just thinking about, I've been thinking about this for the last couple of days actually. But I wanted to jot this down in a quick video, even though it's over 25 minutes. I wanted to give you this video because I wanted you guys not necessarily to feel empowered, because I know some of us are already empowered. But I want you guys to revolutionize your mind. I always say this on my Twitter. Revolution begins in the mind. It doesn't start with economics. It doesn't start with politics. It doesn't start with religion. And I also say that on my Twitter. Religious dogma is not going to save you, Black people. There's no amount of praying to any God, for that matter, that's ever going to liberate you out of this situation. Praying to my ancestors does not liberate me. But what it does is that their pain has transcended through the eons and has transcended between the veil of reality and where they are. And it has told me exactly what I needed to know. And I wish I can explain to you that feeling it is to hear and feel the presence of your ancestors speak to your spirit. There's so much power in isolation and meditation. And I know this quarantine period, a lot of people are losing their jobs. This is not a great time for them. This is a perfect time for you to sit down and meditate. The terrorism has never stopped, and it will never stop until you decide today that if you believe in your heart wholeheartedly that violence is the answer, but it's just a matter of time, you'll start to understand exactly what I'm talking about. But anyway, thank you guys for supporting my channel. I hope that I can bring more enlightened content like this. I know I tend to go off on rants, and I can't really tweet this on Twitter because 28 characters is not enough to really explain my anger sometimes with my people. And I am angry. I am very frustrated because when I look into Black men's face, I see so much power and magic. When I look at Black women, I see so much power and so much magic, but I see fragility. I see fearfulness. And I see lost. I see it all the time. And it hurts me because I was once there. And to a certain degree, I still feel like I'm there. But when I pick up empowering books like Stolen Legacy and Destruction of Black Civilization, I see the solution in our problem. But I know that Black people are too afraid to see. Well, I'm pretty sure that a lot of Black people already know. But on a collective level, it is much easier to scrounge around and get the crumbs that the white man has given us. It's much easier to do so. It is easier. It is easier to coon than to be enlightened. But there's going to come a time, and I posted this on my Twitter a couple of weeks ago as well. What event needs to happen on a global scale for Black people to understand what powers we are actually dealing with? What event? Because clearly the slavery that's going on in Libya is not enough. So what event needs to happen in order for Black people to get it? And the problem is, I don't want that event to happen. You can learn your lesson without waiting for that event to even happen. But anyway, I keep saying that I'm going to end this video, but I just wanted to get that off of my chest. I wanted to bring my heart out to you guys. I want you to vibe with what I be on, because I be on some real hot shit. And I sit here and I ponder these moments every day. And I realize that revolution is not just me alone, but but it is with all of us. Anyone who wants to hear the message. Thank you so much. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Share with somebody who you feel that may need this message. Share this with somebody who needs those 2 books in their lives, in their arsenal, because knowledge is a weapon. And all I want my people is to be empowered. Thank you so much, guys.